Back in the late 15th century, England was a nation literally tearing itself apart. Decades of just brutal civil war had left the kingdom completely broken, just desperate for a leader. And out of that fire, out of all that chaos, rose one of the most powerful, dramatic, and, transformative dynasties in all of history, the Tudors. Their story is just packed with ruthless ambition, religious revolution, and the birth of a whole new national identity. So the big question we're going to tackle is this: how on earth did this one family, in a little over 100 years, totally remake England? Let's dive in. Okay, so to really get the Tudors, you have to start with what came before them, this incredibly bloody conflict called the Wars of the Roses. This was the brutal world that set the stage for the unlikely rise of their very first king, a guy named Henry Tudor. What you're seeing here is basically a masterclass in political maneuvering. In 1485, Henry Tudor, who, by the way, had a pretty shaky claim to the throne, he challenges and kills King Richard III right on the battlefield. But winning the war, that wasn't enough. The really crucial move, the checkmate, comes in 1486 with his marriage to Elizabeth of York. This wasn't a love story. It was a brilliant political play to unite the warring families and finally bring a fragile peace to the kingdom. And this quote, it absolutely nails his entire approach to being king. Henry VII wasn't flashy, he was cautious, he was shrewd, and he was obsessed with one thing: stability. That control wasn't just some idea. He enforced it with ruthless financial policies, making sure the nobility was either too broke or too intimidated to challenge him. Like the quote says, his goal wasn't glory, it was survival. And in doing that, he laid this rock-solid foundation that his son would later build upon, and then, nearly tear right down. So, that foundation was passed on to his heir, Henry VIII. And if his dad was the cautious accountant king, Henry was the charismatic, larger-than-life Renaissance prince. But his dazzling reign was driven by a single, all-consuming obsession that was about to change the course of history forever. It all boiled down to this one thing: the great matter. Henry desperately needed a son. He had to secure the dynasty his father had fought so hard for. But his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, had only given him a daughter, Mary. Henry became convinced the marriage was cursed, and his whole dynasty was at risk. So he decided he needed a new wife. Just one tiny problem: the Pope.
So when the Pope said no to an annulment, Henry did something that was just unthinkable. He didn't just argue with the Pope, he replaced him. By declaring himself the head of the church in England, he shattered 1,000 years of religious tradition. And make no mistake, this wasn't just about faith. It was a revolutionary power grab. It was Henry seizing control of religion, of immense wealth, and of his own marital destiny. And this desperate quest for an heir led to one of the most infamous marital histories of all time. Just look at this table. The fate of his 6 wives really tells the story. You have Catherine of Aragon, who gave him Mary, divorced; Anne Boleyn, who gave him Elizabeth, executed; Jane Seymour, who finally gave him his son Edward, died. What follows is this tragic, brutal pattern of divorce, execution, and finally survival with his last wife, Catherine Parr. It's a shocking summary of one man's obsession. When Henry VIII finally died, he left behind his greatest prize, a male heir, but he also left a kingdom that was dangerously divided by the religious changes he'd forced on it. So the stage was set for his 3 children, each with a different mother and a different faith, to basically fight over the soul of the entire nation. And this right here shows the incredible religious whiplash England went through. First, you get Edward VI, Henry's long-awaited son. He was a devout Protestant, and in his short reign, he pushed England even further away from its Catholic past. But when he died young, the throne passed to his half-sister Mary, Catherine of Aragon's daughter. And she was as passionately Catholic as Edward was Protestant. And she was absolutely determined to drag England, kicking and screaming if she had to, back to Rome. And her method for doing that? Fire. In her 5-year reign, Mary had over 300 Protestants burned at the stake for heresy. Now, she believed she was purifying the souls of her people, but her brutal methods earned her a name that has stuck for all of history: Bloody Mary. After Mary's childless death, the crown passed to the last of Henry's children, the one who'd been declared illegitimate, the one who'd been forgotten, Anne Boleyn's daughter, Elizabeth. I don't think anyone could have predicted that she would go on to become one of England's greatest monarchs. Elizabeth was just brilliant.
She learned from the bloody reigns of her brother and sister and found a middle way in religion that finally brought some stability. And with that peace, England absolutely flourished. We're talking about the age of Shakespeare, of global exploration with guys like Sir Francis Drake, and the forging of this powerful new English identity, totally separate and distinct from the rest of Europe. But her entire reign faced its ultimate test in this one fateful year, 1588. This was the year the mighty Spanish Armada, the greatest naval fleet in the world, sailed to invade England and get rid of the Protestant queen for good. And against all odds, the smaller English fleet, with a little help from some terrible weather, defeated the so-called Invincible Armada. This victory was a monumental turning point. It secured England's future as an independent Protestant nation, and it transformed Elizabeth from a queen into an absolute legend. And this famous quote, it perfectly captures her legacy. She never married. She refused to share her power with some foreign prince or an English nobleman. Instead, she dedicated her entire life to her country, becoming the Virgin Queen, a powerful symbol of national devotion and strength. When Elizabeth died in 1603, the Tudor line died with her. But in their 118 years on the throne, these 5 monarchs had fundamentally and irreversibly changed the country they ruled. So, what's their ultimate legacy? Well, they started by ending a civil war and ended by creating a global power. They broke with Rome, and in doing so, they also, probably by accident, empowered Parliament, which had to sign off on all these revolutionary changes. That set a huge precedent for its future power. They gave their people a new sense of what it meant to be English, and they built the very foundations of the modern state we know today. The Tudor dynasty really was a story of survival, obsession, and transformation. Their choices, made for reasons of power, faith, and frankly, ego, continue to shape our world today. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. What if that first Tudor had lost on the battlefield? How different would England, and maybe even the world, be today?